Characteristics of high-quality informal assessments. Our PLC project looks at various informal assessments and their functions, as well as the characteristics that make up high-quality assessment tools. This PowerPoint can help teachers to make educated decisions when selecting from an array of assessments. There are three main characteristics of assessments: validity, reliability, as well as fairness. There are two areas of concern when looking at content validity. First, the accuracy of the content itself. Is the information provided accurate? Also, does it remove any trivial information that is unnecessary for the students to know? Secondly, does the assessment measure what is supposed to measure? For instance, a math assessment should only assess a student's mathematical capabilities. That's why in earlier grades, math tests are read to the students to make sure that the reading comprehension is not holding back a student's math scores. When dealing with informal assessments, the instructor should ask themselves the following. What knowledge or skills does the student most need to perform successfully on this assessment? What is the assessment asking the student to demonstrate? If the student performs successfully on this assessment, what does that mean? And lastly, how closely does what the assessment measures match the content? Reliability refers to the consistency of the assessment results. Results are the same when they take the same test on different occasions, when different scorers score the same task, and when different but equivalent tests are taken at the same time or at different times. Characteristics of high-quality assessments measure growths and leads to educational decisions, a trait achieved through statistical analysis and equating. Fairness in assessment means that all students, regardless of their individual characteristics, have the same chance to show what they understand, know, and can do. When looking at fairness, we need to make sure that nothing about the assessment is systematically unfair to a group of students based on either their gender, culture, geographical location, linguistic heritage, or physical capabilities. To be fair, an assessment must be culturally sensitive. It must represent gender in a non-stereotypical way. The content that a student from anywhere in the country and from any socioeconomic status would have access to understanding, and also includes content, scenarios, and contexts that are relevant to people from all different backgrounds and perspectives. Bias is another concern when looking at fairness. A group of students has an unfair advantage, and that advantage is statistically observable. This does not include better preparation, higher aptitude, or ease with test taking. The content, materials, and administration procedures should be free from bias. An assessment is considered biased if students have not had the opportunity to learn the content, or if the content matter privileges a certain kind of background or experience. The last thing to look at in fairness is accessibility. Is the assessment accessible to all of our special populations, including English language learners and special education students? Are the tools, assists, and devices, as well as accommodations given, allow all of the students to take either the same assessment or an equivalent assessment as their peers? Lastly, are accommodations given to students with special physical or cognitive needs and accessible to students for whom English is not the first language? Now we're going to take a moment to look at different types of informal assessments. There are myriad informal assessments out there. Today we're just going to focus on the ones listed here. A phonemic skills inventory is used to judge a student's phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is important because it gauges the student's ability to move on in the learning to read process. Phonemic skills inventories break down phonemic awareness into three categories: sound comparison, phoneme segmentation, as well as phoneme blending. Sight word inventories are easy to administer and to monitor progress. What makes this reliable is if you use the same Dolch words for each assessment period. Sight words are used in grades kindergarten through 5th, so these inventories can be used in all grades. Another inventory that is easy to use and administer is a letter recognition inventory. This is best used in kindergarten through 1st grade, since by 2nd grade, letters should already be known. For both sight words and letter recognition assessments, a simple checklist can be used. For every word or letter the student identifies, the teacher puts a check mark next to it. This way, the assessments can be used to show progress or difficulties. Vocabulary assessment is a little more difficult. Vocabulary is one of the 5 essential skills connected with reading and is highly related with content area success. One way to assess vocabulary is through writing. A teacher gives a prompt and tallies the number of times a student uses mature words. Another way is to assess knowledge of specific words using a rubric that students fill out. Yet another way is to assess vocabulary knowledge through word parts, prefixes, suffixes, and roots. It is important to use many different kinds of informal assessments since many students do not possess extensive knowledge critical for student success. One of the easiest informal assessments to gauge what level a student is reading on is a running record. Most reading series in elementary school have a running record book with all levels of text, instructions, and a recording sheet. Running records are most often given in the early stages of reading and are given about once every 6 to 8 weeks. The markings are simple as shown in the example. After reading is completed, a few comprehension questions are asked as well as a retelling. These are quick and easy to do, and you can do 4 to 5 during most reading blocks. Another informal assessment that is easy but quite lengthy to do is a reading inventory. An example of this is the Qualitative Reading Inventory 5, also known as the QRI 5. The QRI 5 has word lists, level text with concept questions, scoring sheet, and comprehension questions. It has everything you need to assess fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary. Since it is so time demanding, it is appropriate to only do it 2 to 4 times per year. One form of observation is a checklist. Checklists are designed to record the presence or absence of knowledge. As discussed earlier, teachers can use checklists when using sight word or letter recognition inventories. The checklists are used to keep track of the student's knowledge. These can be changed based on any level of content and adapted to any grade level. Anecdotal records are one of the easiest forms of observation. They require no real preparation or materials except for a pencil and paper. All the teacher needs to do is observe their students working with the content and write a narrative account of the observations they made. The most hands-on of the observations is the interview. In an interview, a teacher and student will work one-on-one, with the teacher questioning the student's content knowledge. Comprehension strategies are sets of steps that good readers use to make sense of text. Comprehension strategy instruction helps students become purposeful, active readers who are in control of their own reading comprehension. The first comprehension strategy is monitoring comprehension. This teaches students to be aware of what they do understand, identify what they do not understand, and use appropriate fix-up strategies to resolve problems in comprehension. The second comprehension strategy is answering questions. This guides and monitors students' learning, gives students a purpose for learning, focuses students' attention on what they are to learn, helps students to think actively as they read, encourages students to monitor their comprehension, and helps students to review content and relate what they have learned to what they already know. The third comprehension strategy is generating questions. This strategy improves students' active processing of text. Students become aware of whether they can answer the questions and if they understand what they are reading. The fourth comprehension strategy is recognizing story structure. Students who can recognize story structure have greater appreciation, understanding, and memory for stories. Students can learn to identify setting, events, reactions, goals, attempts, and outcomes, and how it is organized into a plot. The fourth comprehension strategy is summarizing. This is when students condense important ideas into their own words. It helps them identify and generate main ideas, connect the main ideas or central ideas, eliminate redundant and unnecessary information, and also to remember what they have read. Comprehension can be measured in several ways. 1. Ask the students to answer questions without looking back in the text. 2. Allow the readers to look back to locate missing answers and correct erroneous ones. This distinguishes between memory and understanding. If a student can locate that answer during the look back, you can assume that understanding is happening and that they just forgot. A student who cannot answer questions or improve performance during a look back has a more serious comprehension problem. If a student cannot answer questions, you may want to determine if there are any patterns to the types of questions. What does the student primarily miss? Factual, literal, explicit, inferential, or implicit types of questions. Retelling offers different information from answers to questions. Is the retelling complete and coherent? Is the retelling confused, incomplete, and inaccurate? If a student is unable to retell, then intervention may need to focus on elements of text structure. Comprehension includes background knowledge, decoding, vocabulary, fluency, and cognitive strategies. Students have to learn to use each of these at the right time. It takes lots of practice and needs to be automatic. Remember, no form of assessment is 100%. Good teachers use all sorts of information to get an accurate picture of a student's strengths and weaknesses. It is important to consider factors like reliability, fairness, and validity when selecting an assessment. There are a variety of assessments from observations to reading inventories that help teachers get an accurate portrait of their students' abilities to help them become successful learners.